The Death God's Daily Troubles by MagicalDucky. Chapter 23. This arrogant young master will have to use 10% of his power. Royal Academy, Room 207. Kyle's point of view. The sunlight shining in from outside warmed me up slightly as I leaned back in my chair and the faint sigh echoed around the empty classroom while I continued to stare vacantly at the ceiling. I was early today. Much earlier than usual. Yesterday, after 1,000 years, I finally killed another person again. And it was still the same. Even after all this time, there was no remorse, no sorrow. All I felt was a cold indifference. And after that, there was nothing more. Instead, I was more worried about the class. Lucky, though. No one was seriously injured. Halbert, Zane, and Rangus managed to get away with just a few scrapes and bruises, while Rena was just exhausted from using most of her mana. Sophie, on the other hand, had a cut in her leg after performing some simple first aid. I managed to stop the bleeding. But before we left the clearing, Halbert stopped everyone and asked us if we'd keep that Xeon thing to ourselves. Halbert said something along the lines of how he didn't want to get anyone else involved as he got down on his knees and begged us with a trembling voice. So what could I do but agree? I don't know what he wanted to keep us out of, but I'm sure he had his secrets, just like I have mine, so I didn't ask. After that, we all returned to the city, and I carried Sophie to the hospital before reporting to the guild that we were attacked in Sylvia Forest by a necromancer. I left out the details of what Xeon had just said, like Halbert asked, but I did mention that I killed him in self-defense. Our cover-up story for Mari was that we were in the classroom like normal yesterday, and if she asked, Halbert, Zane, and Rangus were bruised from some sparring after class, while Sophie accidentally cut her leg at home yesterday. I'll say it now. I am not a very good professor. I'm always just barely on time for class. I can't teach very well. I slack off all the time, and I even put my students in danger. I am an awful professor. But as awful as I am, I still care about my students. They're not meant to be out there fighting for their lives. They should be right here, safe and sound, happily wasting away their youth in this place. In peace. Just like everyone else their age. I raised up my right arm and spread my hand out in front of me as I whispered to myself, they shouldn't have to go through what I did. No one does. My hand slowly closed, and I took a deep breath before slumping over my desk as I stared at my fist on top of the table. Royal Academy, Room 207. Sophie's point of view. The door opened with a loud click as I entered the classroom before shutting it behind me. I was early to class like usual, but today, instead of my empty room, there was an unexpected figure. Slumped over his desk with a sad expression on his face was Professor Kyle. But wait, class doesn't start for another hour. Am I actually late? No, I can't be. There isn't anyone else here either, which means Professor Kyle was actually early today. He turned towards me and made eye contact as I slowly walked over to his side while he sat up in his seat. I stood there for a moment, staring at him with a puzzled look on my face. He asked me what was wrong. What's wrong, Sophie? Nothing, it's just that... Well, are you sure your clock at your house is adjusted correctly? Oi. What's that supposed to mean? Is it that strange for me to be early for class for once? After replying, Professor Kyle slumped over in his desk again, with tears flowing out of his eyes. I couldn't help but giggle at his comical retort while he mumbled grumpily to himself. The moment I decide to actually be a good professor for once, and my own students don't even appreciate it. When I saw Professor Kyle pout cutely, I turned to look out the window. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I burst out laughing. You know, just being early doesn't make you a good professor. It's a start, all right? After my laughter finally died down, silence returned for a moment before Professor Kyle's voice softened to a gentle tone as he continued to stare outside the window at the cloudy sky. Anyway, is your leg okay, Sophie? I looked down at my leg, wrapped in bandages, and I was injured yesterday during the necromancer's attack, but the cut wasn't too deep, and after some treatment at the hospital, I was basically healed up already. Yeah, it's fine. When I was at the hospital, the doctor there used some light healing magic and told me that my leg should be completely back to normal in a few days. That's great. I'm glad you're okay, Sophie. He turned back around, and all I could see was relief in his eyes as he gently smiled at me. I really am. I wasn't sure exactly why, but maybe it was because that lonely, melancholic atmosphere around him had finally disappeared, or maybe it was because I finally saw him smile again after everything that had happened yesterday. But as I continued to stare at him, a warm feeling started to bubble up inside me as my heartbeat gradually sped up. A moment of silence passed by before I quickly twirled around so I wouldn't have to face him anymore. And after bringing my hand up to touch my face, I realized I was burning up. I covered my mouth as my voice lowered to a whisper with a tender tone. Yeah, thanks for carrying me back to the hospital, Professor Kyle. Sure, no problem. It's the least I could do. I held my hand against my chest until my heart calmed down before turning around to face Professor Kyle again. I was about to say something when the door behind me suddenly opened, and I heard Rena call out to us. Professor Kyle, why are you here so early today? Why is it that me showing up a bit early is so unexpected? Am I really that lazy in your eyes? No, it's just that you usually don't show up until just before class starts. Rena replied with a helpless look on her face, and indignant tears began to flow from Professor Kyle's eyes again, and I turned around to face Rena as I giggled a bit. I know, right? That's exactly what I thought, too. Royal Academy, room 207. Kyle's point of view. Kai, I've done it. I've found my future girlfriend, stated Zane. I took another bite of my food as I stared at Zane, who had passionate flames burning in his eyes, while he pointed to the ceiling in a victory pose. It was lunchtime now, and although Mari had asked earlier about why everyone was all bandaged up, it seemed like she believed our cover-up story, and after hearing it from everyone, I guess the EXP from the fight yesterday boosted everyone's friendship level, because today we all gathered together to have lunch. Again, Mari included. You know, I doubt you actually did, but I guess I'll bite. Who is it? I don't know. I don't know what her name was. But I saw a really cute girl when I was rushing to class this morning, and after I tripped on a rock, she came over and helped me up. Sophie let out a sigh, and Rangus just went on eating like nothing even happened, while Halbert and Rena stared at Zane with helpless smiles. Here we go again. It's just like showing you some basic human kindness. You'll probably won't even ever see her again. That's where you're wrong, Sophie. She had our school uniform on, and she's definitely somewhere in the academy. I knew the moment I first laid eyes on her, she is my soulmate. I'll find her, if it's the last thing I do. I took another bite of my food before nodding once and turning to Mari, who was sitting on my right. Hey, do we have something like a witness protection program here? A witness protection program? No. What's that? Well, it's basically a program that provides protection to people who may be the target of criminal activity. Anyway, it's fine. If we don't have one, we can probably just ask one of the security guards to make sure Zane doesn't stalk the girl until after we find out who she is. Hey, I'm right here, you know. Sophie laughed a bit after Zane's outburst, while Halbert let out a dry chuckle before patting Zane on the shoulder. It's a great idea, Professor Kyle. Well, how well do you think that'll work, though? I doubt the security guard could even be there all the time. Well, I'm sure that... I was about halfway through my sentence when the sound of the door opening interrupted me, and everyone turned to look at the entrance as a man burst into the room. He had long black hair that went a little past his shoulders, along with a pair of sharp brown eyes, while his outfit looked like it came straight out of a wuxia drama, consisting of a white swordsman's robe with a sash at his waist that had golden dragons embroidered on it. And not the kind of dragon that you would find out in the wild either. It was that serpentine kind of dragon that you would have found back in Eastern mythology back on Earth. Everyone watched him as he glanced around the room for a moment before locking eyes with me. Then I felt a familiar feeling wash over me. I never thought I'd see someone else besides Halbert at this kind of power level. But I guess the world really is big, huh? This man is definitely a wuxia protagonist. His main character aura is off the charts. Can't a small side character like me catch a break? Right after adjusting to Halbert's monstrous main character aura, another one shows up. Wait, since he's here, am I the next arrogant young master acting as a stepping stone for him? Come on! If you're going to make me an arrogant young master, at least let me enjoy the position for a bit first. I'll be here minding my own business, and the next thing you know, he's going to use his secret forbidden technique on me for just standing in his path today. The man opened his mouth and looked like he was about to say something when Mari cut him off. Professor Young, right? Were you looking for me? What's the problem? Professor? Oh, I didn't realize you were here. Headmaster Sophie, I apologize for my sudden entrance, but actually I've got some business with Professor Kyle. Professor Young turned to stare at me again before walking up. Ugh, why is it always me? I've never even met the guy. He's already had a problem with me. Please, sir, I'm just a poor little side character. I've nothing to offer you, so go play protagonist with Halbert or something. My initial screams echoed out into pointlessness as I met Professor Young's sharp stare with my nervous smile. Can I help you? You're Professor Kyle, correct? Yes. I see. I have come to the right place. My name is Raven Young of House Young. I challenge you to a duel, Professor Kyle. Wait, I've never even met you. What the hell did I do to you? What did you do? Raven crossed his arms and started to chuckle before pointing at me dramatically. I've already have confirmation that from a reliable source, and there's no denying it. You were the one who cut the budget for the weapons department, right? Wait, cut the budget for the weapons department? Mari turned to me and grabbed me by the collar with an angry smile as cold sweat ran down my back. So, what's this about cutting budgets, Kai? I let out a dry laugh before explaining myself. Well, remember the hole in the wall from the first day of class? Where do you think I got the money to fix it? I had to cut someone's budget to get everything sorted out, and obviously I couldn't cut the alchemy department's budget. I don't have access to the business department's budget either, since they're basically self-sufficient. So, only the magic and weapons department were left, and the magic department was already running a little dry, while the weapons department just got new stuff last year. I just made the logical choice and cut a little of the weapons department budget. A little? The budget was almost cut in half compared to last year. Cut in half? I shouldn't have used that much. Wait, I remember now. I bought Neo Excalibur and all the other stuff with their budget too, didn't I? Well, okay. Admittedly, I may have been more than a little, but it doesn't change the fact that it's gone. What's done is done. I've already had the room repaired. I can't do anything about it at this point. Fine. Since you've already spent the weapons department's budget, we'll duel for the alchemy department's budget. So you're telling me that if I lose this duel, then I have to transfer some of the alchemy department's budget to the weapons department? Precisely. I freed myself from Mari's grasp before turning to face Raven while crossing my arms. Perfect. Then I can say with absolute certainty that I refuse. What? You have no honor, Professor Kyle. Honor? What's that? Can I buy alchemy materials with honor? Well, let's just say that hypothetically I do accept your duel. Now, if I lose, then you'll get your budget back. But what do I get if I win? Will I take the other half of the weapons department budget too? What will you do then? That's a fair point. Raven closed his eyes for a few moments, as he thought about the terms of the duel before nodding to himself in confirmation. Then, should you be victorious in our duel, the House of Yong will owe you a favor. However, I doubt if it will be a problem because you won't win. Oh, really now? I know you're a protagonist, but at least show some respect for the supporting cast. Even side characters like me have a limit. Fine. If this is how you want to do it, then this arrogant young master will have to play his part and take out the trash. Oh, wait. He heard about the budget cut from someone else, didn't he? So there might be some loose ends to tie up after this. Then I accept your duel. I chuckled evilly to myself while cracking my knuckles, but before I could get up, Halbert let out a nervous laugh and held me back in a panic. Wait, Professor Kyle, I don't think this is a very good idea. Look, if you want a duel, then instead of a fight, how about you two compete in something more peaceful, like a game? A game? Well, considering Professor Kyle is mannerless, I don't think a fight would be very fair either. So the game doesn't sound like a bad idea. If it's a game, we can hold our duel indoors, too. Headmistress Selphie, may I ask you to act as a witness to the duel? Mari let out a sigh before slumping back into her chair with a tired expression on her face. Fine. I guess I'll be the judge for your dumb game, then. Great. I'll even let you choose the game, Professor Kyle. You'll let me choose. Don't regret it yet, then, Professor Young. What game should I pick? Well, how about chess? It's been a while since I played, and I'll have to make a board in pieces, but it shouldn't take too long. Mari, is it okay if I take some scrap wood from the storage room? Nobody's using it, so sure. Thanks. I'll be back in a bit. Everyone stared at me in confusion as I left the classroom. After a bit, I returned to the alchemy storage room with a plank of wood that's about half the size of my desk. Okay, so I've decided what game we'll play. Oh, what game is it? It's a board game from my hometown called chess. But since I don't have a play set with me, I'll need a bit of time to make the board in pieces first. I walked over to my desk, rummaged through the bag, pulling out a small carving knife that I usually use for engraving monster cores before sitting down and carving out the pieces as I explained the rules to everyone while they watched me curiously. A few minutes later, a simple-looking chess set was sitting on the table in front of me. The board was just a square plank of wood with an 8x8 grid drawn on it, while the pieces were small wooden sculptures with half of them colored black using a pen to signify which side they were from. But despite how crude my craftsmanship was, it was still a perfectly functional chess set. And those are the basic rules of chess. Simple enough, right? I see. So chess is a game where we command equal armies while defending our respective lieges. A battle between two generals. How fitting for our duel. Very well. I accept this battle of wits. Raven nodded his head in acceptance, and I put my knife away and placed the board between us before setting up the pieces so that he was on the white side. Since I chose the game, you can make the first move. First strike, huh? I gestured towards him to start as he held his chin with his hand as he stared at the board. Deep in thought, a few moments passed before he slowly reached out and moved one of his pawns forward, but the instant he let go of his pawn, my hand shot out and immediately moved a pawn forward to match his. He let go of his chin and looked up at me in astonishment, but I just gave him a wry smile back before telling him it was his move. What's wrong, Professor Young? It's your turn to move, isn't it? Yes, I suppose it is. He cleared his throat nervously before taking another few moments to make his next move. But the same thing happened again as I instinctually made my move before a cycle started to repeat itself. I told you, didn't I, Raven? This arrogant young master would put you in your place. So let me show you the true power of the side character. Just try and pull through with your plot armor. I'll shatter it myself. I wasn't the hidden ace of my high school chess club for nothing. About 5 minutes later, I quickly moved my queen into place as I announced the end of the game with a smile. Oh, I do believe that's checkmate, isn't it? Yes. So what's the verdict, Mari? You won the duel, Kai. Cool. It was a good game, Professor Young. My hand extended out towards a frustrated Raven as he slowly grasped my hand in an awkward handshake. Well, I guess I can't blame him for being so shaken now. After all, his strategy was so basic that I read him like a book. It must have felt like I was in his head. Always one step ahead of his every move. But he started this, so I'm showing no mercy. A smug smile made its way onto my face as I shrugged nonchalantly after we finished our handshake. So now that I've won, you owe me a favor, right? Yes, I do. All right then. Since the duel's over, you can return to your class now. Just make sure you don't forget about that favor. After all, you were the one that said that there was no way that you could lose. I started to clean the chess set up while chuckling mockingly at the angry Raven, but before I could pick up the board, Raven slammed his hand down on it while mumbling to himself. A rematch! What? I said I want the rematch, Kyle. Come on, buddy. I gave you a chance to escape and everything, but since you insist on getting your ass kicked again, let me do my part as a member of the supporting cast to accommodate your wish. Sure thing, then. I set the pieces back up before spreading my arms out with a sly smile, almost like I was pressing the board into Raven. Your move, Raven. Royal Academy, room 207. Raven's point of view. Again! It happened again! The clack of wood echoed around the room as I placed my piece down before Kyle instantly made his move in response. I glanced up at his mocking smile as an indescribable mental pressure washed over me. It was already our sixth rematch, and despite so many matches, it was the same story every time. It was like he could read my mind. Every move I made, every thought I had, he knew it. I just fell for the trap after trap as my army slowly died out. It wasn't like two generals facing each other. No, it was more like a beast toying with its prey. I glanced towards the clock before thinking about my next move. Looking at the time, I have to go back and start class again soon, so this will probably be our last match. Fine. I don't want to have to use it, but this is the only way I'll even have a chance against him. I covered the right side of my face with my hand before preparing myself to activate my right eye. You see, despite how normal my eyes look, they weren't normal at all. When I was young, my eyes were blessed by the two guardian spirits of the House of Yong. As a result, my right eye gained the ability to gaze into the future, while my left eye was able to slow down my perception of time. Using my right eye only shows me a still image, a single second in the future, and it makes me nauseous afterwards too. But seeing as Kyle always moves immediately after I do, it wouldn't be much of a problem just to activate it once I see the next move. I picked up my knight and carried it over to where I originally planned to move it, but right before I touched my board, I closed my left eye while channeling mana into my right eye. My hand hid the silverish glow of my right eye, and my sight was replaced momentarily with a vision of the future. Kyle had made his move immediately after, just like I suspected, and when I came back to my senses, I held down the urge to puke as my hands stopped in its tracks before swiftly moving my knight to another spot where Kyle's next move would have resulted in a rook being captured. I moved my right hand to cover my mouth as I felt my stomach churn a bit while looking at Kai again. However, this time it didn't make the move immediately. Instead, he stared at the board for a moment in thought. I'll admit it, Kyle. You're the most frightening opponent I've ever faced. No more underestimating you. If there's no way I can beat you without my full power, then I'll give you the respect you deserve and go all out. A passionate smile made its way into my face as a long-lost sense of excitement bubbled up inside of me again. After so long. Finally, I was on an equal playing field again, facing a worthy opponent. Now make your move, Kyle. I cried out internally as I pumped myself up. Just before I could even think about my next move, Kyle's mocking voice rang out. Oh, not bad, Raven. I guess I have to use 10% of my power. Impossible. 10%? You mean he wasn't even trying before? My eyes widened in shock as Kai's gaze sharpened. I barely even saw him move. Before I could even get a single word out, I was interrupted by the clack of wood as Kyle already finished his move. A smile burst from the wind that made my hair ruffle. When I finally looked down at the board again, the same pressure as before washed over me, only this time it was much stronger. Check. That single word was like a death sentence. His bishop had taken one of my pawns and moved to a spot in between all of my pieces to put my king in check. It wasn't like before when he was playing defensively, always reacting to my move and slowly closing in on the king. This time, he was on the offense. It was an insanely aggressive move, a suicidal blitz by his bishop. Do I take it? Do I move my king to safety? No, I have to take it. I'm already too far behind. Even if he wants a war of attrition, I need every advantage I can get. I grit my teeth and moved my knight to take his bishop. The moment I placed my piece down, I saw a blur as Kyle's arm instantly reached past mine. Once again, the clack of wood rang out along another small burst of wind. Checkmate. Ah, I see. So I wasn't even an opponent for his eyes the whole time, huh? Even with my right eye, my full power was nothing compared to him. Do you want another rematch, Raven? No, I have to get back to my class now. You may be the victor today, but I'll be back tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow then, Raven. After making my declaration, I left the room with a determined look on my face while passionate flames burned in my eyes. Just wait, Kyle. I swear I'll surpass you. Royal Academy, room 207. Kyle's point of view. Oh, that was refreshing. You know, even if he wasn't much of an opponent, I'll admit it was pretty fun playing chess with Raven. Maybe tomorrow I'll even go a little easier on him. After Raven left the room, Halbert turned to me with a helpless smile on his face as he finished the last bite of his sandwich. Professor Kai, maybe you should have eased up on Professor Young a little bit at the end there. Well, he started it, didn't he? At least he ended more peacefully than a fight, stated Ringus. Yeah, but he seemed kind of on edge there after losing so much, stated Zane. Well, he did let Professor Kai choose the game. Yeah, what did he expect would happen? Sophie shrugged and put away her empty lunchbox as I glanced at the clock before turning my back to the class with a satisfied smile on my face. I'm sure he'll be fine. Anyway, it's about time to start class again. Everyone cleaned up before gathering in front of the board again to study the alchemy circle which we were going over today, as I started to put away the chess set. But as I was gathering up the pieces, I felt something tug at my sleeve. I turned around to see Mari grabbing my arm. She stared at me for a moment before clearing her throat with a slightly embarrassed look on her face. Kai, do you have anything to do right now? No, not really. Why? Well then, if you're free, would you mind playing a game of chess with me? Oh, are you sure you want to play such a dumb game with me? I gave Mari a smug smile as she lowered her head to stare at her arm while mumbling quietly to herself. What did you say, Mari? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. I am a little busy cleaning up the pieces of this dumb game. I said it was wrong, okay? It looked like fun. There, I said it. Couldn't help but let out a light laugh as I sat there watching Mari pout cutely while crossing her arms. Sure then, just give me a second to set up the pieces. A few moments later, Mari sat down across from me as we started our match. It was set up in the exact same way as before, with Mari being the white side while I took the black side. Well, isn't this a duel, so maybe I should go a little easy on her. Of course, I won't let her win so easily, but I should at least give her a chance, right? All right, you can go first then. A couple of minutes later, I casually moved my last piece into place as I announced my victory. And that's checkmate. Ah. Mari stared at the board in surprise for a moment before immediately grabbing my arm again. I want a rematch, Kai. But like Raven, well, I guess that's fine. It's nice to just relax every once in a while, and there's already an alchemy circle on the board for the class to study, so it's not like I've got anything else to do today. Sure, but could you let go of my arm? I can't set the board up if you keep holding on to it like that. Oh, sorry. Mari released her vice grip on my arm with a slightly embarrassed face before I set up the pieces again for our next match. Your move then, Mari.